The H1B guy here, and today the H1B guy is going to cover EB1C, what you need to know. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. Today's post is brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. As I mentioned, I'm going to cover employment-based immigration, first preference, EB1, but specifically, I'm going to focus on EB1C. If there's any interest, I may cover EB1A and EB1B at a later time. But for now, I wanted to just simply define both, and that is EB1A is for extraordinary ability in the sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics through sustained national or international acclaim, and no offer of employment or labor certification is required. EB1A allows for individuals to self-petition. EB1B is for international recognition for outstanding achievements in a particular academic field and 3 years of experience teaching or research in that academic area. EB1B requires an employer to petition on the beneficiary's behalf and provide an offer of employment and validate that it employs 3 full-time researchers. No labor certification is required. EB1C is for certain multinational manager or executive. You must have been employed outside the United States for at least 1 year in the 3 years preceding the petition, or the most recent lawful non-immigrant admission if you are already working in the U.S. for the petitioning employer. The U.S. petitioner must have been doing business for at least 1 year, have a qualifying relationship to the entity you worked for outside the U.S., and intend to employ you in a managerial or executive capacity. Your petitioning employer must be a U.S. employer and intend to employ you in a managerial or executive capacity. The petitioner must have been doing business in the U.S. for at least 1 year as a legal entity with a qualifying relationship to the entity that employed you abroad in a managerial or executive capacity. No labor certification is required. Multinational manager or executive. Your U.S. employer must file USCIS Form I-140 Petition for Alien Worker as part of the application process. Your employer must be able to demonstrate a continuing ability to pay the offered wage as of the priority date. Your employer must use an annual report, federal income tax return, or audited financial statement to demonstrate a continuing ability to pay your wage. If your I-140 petition is approved, your spouse and unmarried children under the age of 21 may be eligible to apply for admission to the United States in E-14 or E-15 immigrant status, respectively. So to qualify, you must have worked for the petitioning employer abroad for at least 1 consecutive year in 3 years prior to filing your I-140 and EB1C and continue performing the same job responsibilities. The petitioning employer must have been doing business in the U.S. for at least 1 year and conducting business in 2 or more countries, one being the U.S. Proof of documented authority, oversight, supervision, and direction from high-level executives, partners, board, and shareholders must be provided. Remember that statement that no labor certification is required? This means that EB1 category can avoid one of the biggest steps in what I refer to as the 3 steps in employment-based green card process. The first being a certified perm labor, which includes a prevailing wage, recruitment, quiet period, filing, and certification. The second step is an approved I-140 for the appropriate employment-based category. And the third step, an approved I-485 adjustment of status. If you think that's no big deal, think again. It allows these beneficiaries and their petitioners to hit the fast forward button and accelerate the process by 6 to 12 months at a minimum. Let's look at the I-140 approvals for EB1C from fiscal year 2009 to 2019. The rest of the world, 113,306 approvals. India, 38,400 approvals. And China, 6,096 approvals. The total being 157,802 approvals in that 10-year period. Just by looking at the numbers, it's very clear that the rest of the world and India have been the biggest recipients of the EB1C category approvals. However, there was a slightly noticeable trend for EB1C approvals in 2019 for rest of the world, India, and China across the board. And that is, those approvals were cut in half year over year from 2018 to 2019. EB1C does come with a fair amount of ambiguity and complaints. It really all comes down to the petitioning employer and the documentation and evidence that they must provide to build the legal case for the beneficiary. Without that evidence as proof, they'd be filing an EB2 or EB3. If petitioners are making fraudulent claims in order to circumvent the labor certification process, then that is a problem. But in reality, it seems like they might just be gaming the system. The biggest issue comes in this scenario. Raj came to the US in 2012 and earned a master's degree in computer science from Georgia Southern University. He then began working for a fintech company in Atlanta, Georgia as a software engineer. Raj's company sponsored his H1B in the HCAP lottery, and he was awarded an H1B. Raj works under H1B for his company for 2 years, and then they initiate his employment-based green card sponsorship. After 18 months, Raj's I-140 is approved in EB2 with a priority date of March 1st, 2018. Now, Raj must wait for his priority date to become current based on the monthly visa bulletins. And then the second individual, Srini, who came to the U.S. on H1B in 2018 after working for a large integrator for 2 years in Bangalore, India as a software engineer. Once coming to the U.S., Srini's promoted to a manager title. His employer petitions for EB1C for Srini. The priority date is December 2020. Which just so happens to be current, and Srini can file his I-485 adjustment of status, he will most likely have his green card in the next 12 months or so. Once Srini receives his green card, he can transfer into a non-managerial role, and a new resource is brought in, and over the cycle continues. So this is where I take issue. Someone that's been in the U.S., is U.S. educated, and has been working in the U.S. for many years has to take a place in line behind someone else because they are petitioned under a managerial designation. If that is happening, and it is, it's a problem. While I think there needs to be a category for executive leaders, unquestionably, no doubt there does, modifications need to be made for the managerial resources and those designations. But the best way to stop this kind of fraud or gaming of the system would be to require Perm labor certifications for all petitions that are employer driven. I believe we're going to see reform around employment-based preferences introduced as soon as this year. As always, I will continue to monitor the EB1C process and keep you all informed of any changes. For the full post on EB1C, what you need to know, please check out the H1BGuy.com. And a reminder that today's post was brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. This national job board network provides recruitment websites in 1,024 major U.S. metro areas. Each local job board is its own portal and is a low-cost resource for immigration recruitment ads for all industries and professions with a flat price of $225 per ad regardless of which city you choose. RecruiterNetworks.com has been the #1 place for immigration attorneys, immigration ad agencies, and employers to meet the DOL requirements for the digital portion of the Perm advertisement rules. RecruiterNetworks.com. Tell them the H1B guy sent you. Just like to ask you again to please like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we post new content here to this channel. If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate your support. The H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.